I love that during the Easter season, we get to read from Acts of the Apostles in the first reading. Because usually throughout the year, the first reading is the Old Testament about the prophets and about all that. But during the Easter season, these 6 weeks, 7 weeks, we get to read Acts of the Apostles, which is a story of the first church, the beginning of the apostles as they go out into the world. So it picks up right after the ascension, where Jesus rises from the dead and then ascends to heaven. And then the Acts of the Apostles picks up with the coming of the Holy Spirit and sending it out. And this weekend, as we hear from the first reading of Acts of the Apostles, we read the story of the beginning of the diaconate, the first deacons. We hear how it says that the Hellenists came to the apostles and started complaining, saying that their widows were not being fed, were not giving the daily distribution of food, and it's not fair. The Hellenists, remember, are the Gentiles, or the non-Jewish people who have converted to Christianity, to the way, to following Jesus. But they're coming to the apostles, to the 12, saying, it's not fair that we're treated as second-class citizens, to which the apostles agree with that. And it says they call 7 reputable men to ordain to put in charge of the daily distribution, the corporal works of the church, the physical things of the church. And we see that today the diaconate, especially permanent deacons in the church, are called to do that, to help the feeding of the poor, to help those who are homebound, to help in those ways. Because it says the apostles were busy preaching the word. They were too busy doing these other important works. But with the apostles, we see these men oftentimes look very much like you and I. They're men who screw up time and time again, who do all these things. But today we see them at their best because they see this problem, they call upon the Holy Spirit, and they fix that problem. The temptation, I feel like if you and I were in that situation, is as people come complaining, saying, this problem, bring this situation before me, is haven't I done enough? Like, haven't I not done enough? The apostles, the 12, would have said, haven't we done enough? Look at all the good things we're doing. Or compare to one another. The temptation is to compare ourselves to our coworkers, saying, well, I've done more than that guy, or to our neighbors. If he would just pull his weight in the neighborhood, or more destructively, when we compare ourselves to our spouse, well, I've done more for this family than my wife or my husband. Comparing ourselves, we know, is never a good thing, is always going to be destructive, is always going to be bad. But I want to make an argument this weekend that there is one person we should compare ourselves to, and that person is Jesus Christ. And we're always going to fall short. We're always going to fall short in that comparison, because I don't know about you, but I haven't died and rose from the dead this week. I haven't saved anybody from their sins in the way that Jesus has done for me and for you. And so we're called to compare ourselves to him because we always have more that we can do. And we see the apostles living that out really, really beautifully this weekend. Somebody in my own life who have embodied that, who had embodied that, was my own dad. My dad was a mechanic on cranes, and he would get up at 5 a.m. every day. He would then spend the first 15, 20 minutes in prayer, reading the scriptures, praying his rosary. And then he would empty the dishwasher for my mom before he would get in the truck to go to work by 6 a.m. And he wouldn't get home before 6 p.m. any night, worked over 12 hours a day. We'd have dinner together as a family, and then one of his 8 children would then need something, right? Help with school, a project that needed to be done. I remember time and time again, Dad, we need to get this done. Yeah, I might have had it 3 months before, but it's due tomorrow, and now we have to do it. And my dad would never say, I'm too tired. I had too long of a day. I can't do this for you right now. Sometimes you say, you know what? I have to deal with your sister, or I have to help your brother right now. But he never said I was too tired, or I've done too much already. I've already done enough. He embodied what the apostles did today, not going after the problem saying, well, I've done enough. I've done all these good things, but saying, how can we fix, how can we enter in and deal with this problem and fix it in the process of the Holy Spirit? We see this growth in the apostles because these 12 men were not doing that a couple of years before. I think of the feeding of the 5,000 when Jesus had over 5,000 people out in a deserted place, and the apostles come to Jesus and say, send them away, that we don't want to deal with them. We don't want to help them, that we can't. And Jesus tells them, feed them yourself. And then we know the story. He multiplies the loaves and the fish. Today, in Acts of the Apostles, we see the apostles truly living out that. Feed them yourselves. Call upon the Holy Spirit. So this week, I encourage us in 3 ways. The first is, every day when you get up, ask the Holy Spirit to put that person in your life whom you're called to serve. It might be somebody completely out of the blue, somebody you had no idea, a stranger on the street, or it might be somebody whom you know and love very much. but ask the Holy Spirit to put that person in front of you today. And then throughout the day, check in, call upon the Holy Spirit, ask for grace, because as the apostles, we're works in progress. We are not finished products that we need to keep coming back to him. And then at the end of the day, examine your conscience. Go back through it. When did I say yes in following the Lord and serving one another and giving of myself as the apostles did? Or when was I selfish? When did I say, well, that's enough? I've already done enough for you or for whoever. Acts of the Apostles is 28 chapters. 28 chapters were here at the very beginning of the church lived out. The thing is, as Acts of the Apostles is still being written today, that you and I are the church living in the times of the Acts of the Apostles. We are living the 29th chapter. Go out and make disciples of all nations, giving of ourselves as the apostles did each and every day. God bless.